So hi everyone, welcome back to another Digital with Akash. And today it's all about email marketing, something that is, I think, one of the most important marketing channels today. Has been existing since many, many years. It's nothing new, but it's definitely one of the powerhouses in marketing that's here to stay today and will be definitely pioneering our conversions and sales in the future. So I think it's one of the most kind of overlooked one for new businesses, especially with the rise of social media, influencer marketing. But today I definitely want to go a bit more deeper into email marketing and hopefully entice some of you into new practices to really help your conversions online. So before we begin, it's important to know that the last courses have been completed and they're now live on YouTube. So we've done social media marketing, influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, search engine optimization, and content marketing was the last course. And then next week will be paid search and PPC, followed by Google Analytics, and then that's Digital with Akash 2-month course done. So yes, you can see the content marketing course on YouTube. It's live, so do check it out if you missed last week's. But today it's all about email marketing. So email marketing, for those who don't know, is the practice of sending various types of emails to a list of subscribers via email. So basically it's kind of like you want to make sure your email has a sort of content or some kind of purpose, not just sending any old email. So you really want to make sure your main metrics or goals are, for example, whether it's to convert or to educate or to direct people to another site. And why is email marketing important? Well, it's because it's a very highly effective digital marketing strategy, not only for your customers, but also for your prospective customers. So the most effective marketing emails today really help turn your prospects into customers and your one-time buyers into repeat buyers and long-term buyers. And also you want to make sure you can maintain those buyers that have been with you for many, many years. And of course, this is just talking in the element of sales, if you have an e-commerce business, but the same goes with if you're an influencer and you have an email list to your blog, same thing, just basically how can you maintain your subscriber and grow that audience base. But before we go into the specifics and the benefits and some tips and tricks, it's important to know the definitions for those who don't know. So we'll go through these specific ones: open rates, click rates, which is also known as click-through rates, bounce rates, which can be split up into soft and hard bounce rates, and then unsubscribe rates, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. So open and click rate. So an average open rate or an open rate is basically the percentage of total number of subscribers who have opened an email campaign. So let's say you send an email to 100 people and only 10 people have opened that email, you would have an average open rate of 10%. And the click-through rate, that's more once they've perhaps opened the email, it's then what is the activity that's going on within that email, that clicking within the email, whether it's to a link or whether it's to on an image or a button. So the email click rate or click-through rate is the percentage of people who click on a link or image within the email. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's very important to know those definitions because we'll be referring to them quite a lot in this webinar. So the number one thing before we go into the other definitions is how to improve your open rate, because today many people want to get more people to open their emails. That's one of the biggest concerns people see today. So the biggest tips I would say is first making sure you have an improved and the best subject line, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a compelling subject line, people aren't going to click on your email. You also want to test your subject line length and the tone and the context. Do you want to, is your brand or is your personal brand something that's quite fun, colloquial, or do you want to be very professional? Or do you want to maybe showcase an offer and get to the point? For example, 10% off today. You also want to optimize the preview in terms of the pre-header text. So what this means is usually you have your subject line, which is your header, and then you have one or two sentences underneath. So if you look at the right-hand side, this is just an email I got today from a local cinema. As you can see, this one I don't think is a very good one, so we'll kind of refer to it and we'll also explain how we can improve it. But their subject line is your weekly newsletter. Then they've got their kind of pre-header text says, win a massive DVD bundle. And then it says email not displaying correctly, view it in browser. That's because they didn't use all of the characters that they could have done. So what ends up happening is your email browser or your, whatever you're using, whether it's Google Mail, etc., will fill it in with some extra characters. So I would have definitely suggested to make the newsletter, the weekly newsletter subject line a bit more compelling, and also have a few more text involved after the massive DVD bundle. For example, what does that include, and is there a deadline? For example, hurry, only 24 hours to enter. That encourages people to click on the email. Also, it's important to perhaps test the sender name and email address. So when you're doing your email campaigns, which we'll go through a bit later on, you can basically make it very personalized and say, instead of you could have just done Akash, your weekly newsletter. It makes it instantly a lot more familiar, a lot more personal, and more likely for people to click through. You can also test the send day, send time, and the cadence. So should you be sending an email weekly, daily? Depends on obviously your business, but often weekly seems to be the best method to do so. And also, yes, ensure you have relevant content through personalization and segmentation is very, very important. So for this, I would have preferred to say, Akash, your weekly newsletter, win a massive DVD bundle worth X amount of money. Hurry, only 24 hours to enter. Boom, really easy, really impactful. There's a call to action. There's a sort of indication that I need to click quicker than later. And it's quite personal as well. So that's something that, many companies should think about when they're writing the emails. Are they going through this checklist of when people can open the emails? Are they more likely to do so? And then the click-through rate. So let's say we managed to get people to click on the email, and that's a great thing. Now we want them to kind of engage with the content that we're talking about, right? Can they go to the site and buy, or can they go watch a video? So some of the tips that I would say to improve your click-through rate would be to create stronger segments. So this means making sure that your kind of segments or your blocks are very clear, on brand, on point. Also maintaining your brand voice. So is it very on brand? Is it in the same tone of voice that is normally seen on your social media, on your website, in your stores, as an influencer? Also to improve your call to actions through clear copy and design. So is there a clear message to say, click this, learn more, book now? Otherwise, will they necessarily click on the button? Also to offer strong incentives to capture the subscriber's attention. People love offers, discount codes, anything that makes it a lot more easier for them to engage with that and follow through with your request. Also to ensure your subject line reflects the content. Often I see emails that have a very compelling subject line to make us click at it. And then you end up clicking through and you're like, there's nothing about what they've said. It's sort of like they're kind of tricking us. So it's making sure that you really do deliver what you say in your subject line. And of course, as always A/B test, always try and different things so you can end up knowing what works best for your emails. But if you look at the example, which is of the same email I showed before of the picture house, the local cinema, here you can see, again, I would really improve this. It's quite busy. The text is, very basic font, nothing too special. Don't miss this. Doesn't really necessarily make me excited. Just kind of is quite maybe, not very clear what it is I'm not missing. Then you also have this red button at the bottom, which says Celebration of Sundance Festival. That's actually a button to click, but there's no indication for me to click that. So instead of writing Celebration of Sundance Festival, it could have been like learn more, visit more, or view further. So I wouldn't necessarily know to click that button, and therefore the click-through rate would be quite low. The good thing they did, though, they did do quite a few hyperlinks in the text. So, the full review here, that makes you quite interested to click on it. But perhaps there's too many. Like, maybe you want to focus on one or two places to click, not 4 or 5, because the chances are once they've clicked, they're not really going to come back to your email. So how do you make sure they click on the most important thing and not perhaps the other things? So for example, in this interview, maybe that's not something to necessarily click through to. So here is just some tips. And I would always recommend you guys, when you get emails from your subscriptions that you are currently subscribed to, for example, the shops that you shop at or the influencers you follow, analyze those emails and always think about what you could do better if you were writing those emails, because it will help you practice and get better at writing emails for your own business. Then the next thing to define is the email bounce. And what this means is, An email bounce or bounce rate basically signifies a non-delivery of your email message, meaning that the person hasn't got it. So when this happens, the mailer, me sending the email, will receive an automatic notification that delivery failure. So we've all done it when we've misspelled something, we get an automatic bounce back saying, sorry, undelivered or error. But there's important to know that there's two types of definitions for this. There's a hard bounce and then there's a soft bounce. So a hard bounce occurs when the message has been permanently rejected by the server of the other person because the email address is either invalid or the email address doesn't exist. So basically that means no matter what happens, that person will never ever receive the email. And usually that happens when you type in .con instead of .com, or you misspell a letter. Then there's a soft bounce, which actually happens quite often than the hard bounces. And that's basically when the email address was valid, so everything was good, but it didn't reach the recipient's mail server because of a couple of reasons. One could be they have a full inbox. That happens a lot. Other thing could be that the server was down. So, sometimes servers can go down once or twice, in a month or in a year. So that can happen. And also perhaps the message was too large. And often that's why I always recommend to do a WeTransfer link and never have an attachment, because a lot of people, especially, high like CEOs, et cetera, who get emails on a regular basis, their inbox gets crowded so quickly that often if you have a high attachment, it will never get even shown in their email inbox. So those are just some things to think about: soft bounce, hard bounce. But how to improve your bounce rate? So the benchmark for bounce rate is usually less than 2%. You want to basically have a low bounce rate. If you have a bounce rate of around 5% or even 10%, you need to worry. Like, that's something that you need to fix and understand why. And this is on an email basis. So of course you have higher bounce rates from other channels. Sometimes you can get on advertising bounce rates of up to 80%. And that's quite normal because people are not subscribed to it. It's just a random ad. So when they click on it, they're like, nope, I leave straight away. So you want to make sure that for this, your bounce rate is optimally less than 2%. And I don't necessarily know the exact, because every definition can vary, but usually it's when someone has gone on the next page or the next site, and then they've left before 3 seconds of visiting that page, then that kind of classifies as a bounce. That's how it works for social ads, for example. So some tips to improve your bounce rate would be to maintain a good list hygiene. What that means is, if you have got existingly from the past some wrong emails or some misspelled emails or some inactive emails, delete them from your subscriber list. Don't focus on having as many subscribers as possible. If you know that you have some that are just basically not good, or someone has wrongly put the email in, delete them, because it will affect your delivery rate later on by your emails. There's like a server that will basically look at your bounce rate, your open rate, your click rate, and then will depend if it's spam or not. And that's why often many businesses, when they send emails, even if they're legit, it goes straight into a junk mail. So all these things, by improving your bounce rate, your click-through rate, and your open rate, will really make sure that when you're sending an email, even for the first time, it often is delivered directly in the inbox and not in spam or junk. Also, it's very important to use a double opt-in. This means that when someone is signing up to leaving their email, whether it's on your website or it's on a landing page, always try to do a double opt-in. What this means is then they'll get another email to basically confirm their email address and sign up again, and allow us to email them. What that can often do is then spot if they've already spelt a mistake. If they've already made a mistake, then they won't get the double opt-in. So you won't have as many inactive people in your subscriber list. So it can really make sure that the right email is being put in. Also, to monitor your email delivery. So, once you've sent emails, and often these tools from MailChimp, I'll go through some tools later on in this webinar, they will have automatically the results, for example, the average open rate, bounce rate from your email send out. So really analyze that number and see how you can improve it each time. So really it's important to monitor that. And try to make your email not look like spam, or use keywords that are often associated with spammable things. And really abide by the regulations and rules. So have a subject line, have a good subheader text, and make sure you're using enough text and not just images in your email. And then lastly, unsubscribe rate. So this is quite obvious. This basically is the people that are unsubscribing or opting out of your emails. it happens to all of us. I mean, especially sometimes when we get someone emailing us quite often, like maybe once a day or once every few days, we often, after a while, when we're fed up, we're like, cool, I'm unsubscribing from this email, I don't want it. So that often is commonly associated with people when they over email. And the industry standard of the unsubscribe rate is between 0.1 and 0.25%. It's quite vague because there's quite a few different companies out there stating different things, but let's just go from an average of under 0.25%. And how to improve your unsubscribe rate? Well, firstly, it's about growing the healthy list from the start, making sure that you've got the emails from people that are really genuinely interested in what you're saying. It could be, for example, your customers, mainly so, people in your store, people who have come to your website and are really tempted to get a discount code or get something from you. Grow that healthy list from the start. Use automation to build a long-term brand engagement, so really using your data really effectively. Again, segmenting your audience to send more relevant emails. So it's very important, if you have 10,000 emails, but you know maybe 60% of them are women, 40% are men, and today you're going to do an email targeted at women, maybe just send it to the 60% of the mailing list. And you can do this by tagging your subscribers in your relevant marketing email tool. Also, re-engage your audience to maintain list hygiene. If you've noticed some emails are wrong, or really make sure you're cleaning that and making sure that the relevant emails. Because sometimes if your email is wrong and it goes to someone else, they're just going to unsubscribe straight away, because obviously they weren't meant to get your email in the first place. Remember that some list churn is normal and healthy, so it's okay to sometimes have some unsubscribing, because it will improve eventually your bounce rate, your open rate, and your click-through rate. So again, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a high unsubscribe rate sometimes. It's like having fake followers on Instagram. It's okay to clean it out. That's basically the main topics. So in terms of industry statistics, to really go through some key figures and hopefully help you with your benchmarking, this is something from MailChimp, that the average open rate you should aim for is around higher than 22%. So if you're getting anything above 25%, great. Aim for higher, aim for 50%. 100% is very unlikely, but aim for as high as you can. Also, the average click rate, which seems very low, but it's not It's not unsurprisingly, because what happens is a lot of people click on an email and then they often view it and then they go back on their email inbox, because they're in their inbox, not necessarily to leave it, but to kind of go through their emails. So it's quite normal to have quite a low click rate, but always aim for at least above 5%. Your hard bounce, soft bounce, you're looking at an average around 0.5%, and your unsubscribe rate, as I said before, between 0.1 and 0.25%. So you can use this number, you can screenshot this, and this is something to benchmark when you're doing your own emails and looking at your own data analytics. And some key 2020 findings, which I think is very important. So it's been proven in terms of a lot of kind of A/B testing that the best day to send your emails are Tuesdays. So there you go, Tuesdays and Fridays, but Tuesdays are definitely the best day apparently. Funnily enough, it's also the best day to get, it's not the best day, but it's the most common day to have the most highest unsubscribe rates as well. So maybe that's because most people are sending their emails on Tuesday, who knows, but usually try to send your emails on Tuesday and avoid sending your emails on Saturday. I think it also makes sense. On weekends, people usually don't want to read emails. They want to be outside having fun. Also, it's important to know that in terms of 2019 to 2020, we're seeing improvements, small but still effective. So it shows the growth of email marketing as a channel today, and the interest of audiences using emails. It's not declining whatsoever. And it's pretty consistent with the benchmarking that's been year on year. So those figures that I've said here, you can pretty much use even for next year, 2021, I'm sure. So now the benefits of email marketing. So we'll go through some of the key benefits. So generally emails have a larger reach. So I'm going to kind of give a lot of examples comparing it to social media, because often that's where most people are spending the digital marketing budget on social media. But I want to kind of educate people to say emails are just as effective. So Facebook has over 1.7 billion active users, and it's tempting to really think that social media is the most effective way to reach the masses. But actually, there are 3.8 billion active social media users in the world, but there's 3.9 billion active email users in the world. So there's actually more email users than social media users. Whether this rate is increasing at the same rate as social media, probably not, but it's important to know that there are actually more, and it's still a very, very wide audience that could be reached. Also, it's important to know that emails really do deliver your message. So 90% of emails do get delivered to the intended recipient's inbox, whereas only 2% of your Facebook fans see your post in the news feed. So that just basically tells you, even though the number might be quite high, organically, your email does get seen by people. But that's why on Facebook, you end up having to just do a lot of boosting posts. Even on Instagram, you've got to do some ads because not many people are seeing your content at the end of the day. And a lot of people complain about how they post and no one sees it. Whereas email, it's usually, that open rate and it gets in your inbox pretty quickly. But there are strict laws and regulation around, spamming. So that's why it's very important that if you're emailing a prospect or a customer, that you have their permission. Similar to the reason why you want to do that is because once you have their permission and they're expecting you to email them, then they're more likely to get the message and it's going to be delivered. The reason why 2% of Facebook fans, see posts in newsfeed and even less really engage in the ads is because they're not opting to see that ad. They're just coming across it for the first time. So same with emails, making sure that you really have opted in to receive that email. Don't just rush out to get thousands and thousands of email addresses to increase your subscriber list because it will not end up being effective in the long term. And it's true that the message is 45 times more likely to be seen on email than Facebook. So that number should just stay in your head to really show the impact of how emails can get your message across. Also, emails do drive conversion. So the average click-through rate, as we said before, of an email campaign can be around 3%, whereas the average click-through rate from a tweet, for example, is 0.5%. And 4.24% of visitors from email marketing buy something as compared to only 2.5% of visitors from search engines like Google and 0.59% from social media. So when it comes to pretty much thinking about your visitors, 100%, email marketing does end up converting very much so. Also, email has a higher ROI. So what this means is the email marketing yields on average 3,800% ROI for businesses. So for every $1 spent on email marketing, your average return on investment is $38. So it's a very, very effective tool. Only, supposedly if you have got the right, things in place. For example, right content, right subject line, all the things we talked about before, that will increase your ROI for sure. And also, emails will be around forever. We can't deny the first promotional email campaign was in 1978. So it's not a trend, and it's still very much, as you can see by the number today, 3.9 billion active users, is still very much a daily marketing channel. So that's why it's important to make sure it's a big part of your marketing mix, because it's not going to go away next year. Whereas social media, for example, TikTok could be big this year, and look what's happening right now in America. It might not be here next year. So don't invest all your money on what's trending, but do things that will be here forever. But it's important to also think about the disadvantages of email marketing, more so as a way of warning in terms of how to combat that as you start growing this channel. So the first is cost with scale. So of course, the marketing tools you're using, whether it's MailChimp, Cheetah Mail, there's so many companies, you usually have to pay them. And the more subscribers you have, the more expensive it gets monthly, and the more emails you want to send. Usually that doesn't impact it, but it can impact the cost. So I would say, as you increase your email marketing activities, you get better results, more subscribers, the more costs that are involved. But usually it's very, it's not a lot of monthly value, so definitely worth doing. Also, the inability to edit once sent. So that's the issue. Like an ad or a social media post, if you made a mistake, you can just quickly edit it and it's done. It's okay. Once you sent an email, it's sent. Yes, you can recall some emails, but often it doesn't really work, and often it's just there and it's always been seen and it's in the person's inbox. So definitely there's a risk involved with if you make a spelling mistake or you make an error in your message and you've done a wrong offer, or you've done something really brand for your brand. Email marketing could destroy you in a second. So it's very important to make sure that you've proofread, you've got approval, and you really double, triple, quadruple check before you send an email, especially if you have 1 million subscribers, for example. Also, the deliverability issues are very important. It's not guaranteed. It's something like, as I said before, with SEO, you're optimizing your email marketing delivery by improving your open rate, your click-through rate, your improving your bounce rates. But of course, if you do something dodgy or something goes wrong and it suddenly all falls, your delivery will then change. It will look like a spam email. So that's why it is something that you have to be always on it. To make sure your deliverability is consistent. You can't take it for granted. Whereas from an ad, for example, you can guarantee the delivery by paying to be in someone's newsfeed. In an email, there's no way you can guarantee it goes in an inbox as opposed to a junk mail. It's just about how you're improving your email marketing techniques. Also GDPR and commercial spam. So there's more and more regulations that goes on. The whole email marketing industry had a bit of a turning point a few years ago when the GDPR policy really extended and got stronger, where we had to then opt in all our database to basically say, now with new policies, can you opt in again? So many people lost thousands and thousands of email addresses. And yes, it's good because it's about privacy, and a lot of people are hacking databases to get people's emails, which we don't want. But it is something that's, unfortunately could be more and more barriers to entry as we go further in the industry. And, you also don't want to come across it, you're doing commercial spam, because if you spend too many emails, or if you send too many emails and you maybe don't have the right strategy and it's too commercial, you end up losing some of your brand DNA and brand messaging, which can affect other channels in your marketing. Also, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's a very long-term strategy. It does take time to build, like SEO. You've got to optimize always each week. So it's not something for necessarily quick wins. You have to keep on building it and working on it. And that also mainly comes from increasing your subscriber database. So in terms of email marketing tools, I personally, this is something that I've never trained in emails. I've just learned this from doing it on my own accounts and my own hair care brand. So I personally use one, and I'm very happy with one. But here are the three that I do know of, and I have had familiar, experience working with them. So the three that I would recommend you guys can, if you're new to email marketing, to look at, but there are so many more, of course. It's HubSpot, which I think is voted the #1 tool to use, MailChimp, which is the one I use and the one I'm just very familiar with, and Benchmark, which is a lot more digestible, a bit like, baby fed, but people really love it because it's got really beautiful templates pre-made as well. So just how I create a custom email. Personally, like the other email, I don't necessarily like to use, fonts that are just Times New Roman. I want to make it very on brand, using our brand's fonts, our brand's colors, certain images. So for me, I actually do everything in Photoshop, and I build sort of blocks. So I create little segments, as we say. Each segment is clickable to a specific link. So once I've created it on Photoshop, I then would I would crop each section and export each one. And then on MailChimp, I will build it like a building block, like Lego, like one on top of the other. And then each one, I would make a UTM tracking code for Google Analytics. That's anything that's our branded website, of course. Anything that's more like going to a magazine's article, then I would just put the direct link. And that's very important to make sure you are using UTM tracking codes for anything that goes to your site, because you want to be measuring the conversions after, especially when it comes to sales. Having said that, those tools like MailChimp will also be able to connect directly to your website. So they will also be having a pixel to check if any conversions happened, and they will let you know as well in your kind of email overview. But they don't always get the best, most accurate data. So that's why when you do your UTM, you can see later on if someone bought 20 days later, or they were part of the channel path. And here's a little screenshot on the right-hand side of just how easy it is. You can do, you can choose your segment, you can choose your all audience, you can do certain tags, just the female audience, just 18 to 24-year-olds. You can then choose the email you want to send it from, whether it's an info ad, or marketing ad, or sales ad. Then you can do your subject and your subheader text, and then you put the content. You also can have in MailChimp pre-made templates, so that exists. But I just really recommend, if you're going to make emails, have your own template, something that's branded to you, and using Photoshop again, or any other tool like canva.com is really effective to increase your click-through rate once people have opened your email. So just 5 tips now as a last point to get more subscribers, because that's one of the most important things, is to get email addresses. Is I would definitely recommend new businesses to work on lead generation ads. What this is basically doing YouTube, Facebook, Instagram ads, but with the purpose to get an email at the end. So whether there are some ad sets like in Facebook that they have the email capture within the ad, so you don't have to go to a landing page, you just click on the email, sign up, they have an email box, and then from Facebook Business Manager, you can directly download a CSV of all the email addresses. You want to make sure you have an opt-in for GDPR policy, that you have the right to then use those emails for your database. Or if you just want to do a basic ad, just doing a landing page where people can then just go, leave their email, sign up, again, GDPR compliant, and then you can use those you can import those email addresses to your database, your marketing tool like MailChimp. Again, also maybe leveraging other channels, and if you have 100,000 followers on Instagram, try to get some of those emails from these people. You're just sitting on a number. Why don't you do a story with a swipe up to get some email addresses? Because then you can start emailing them as opposed to just posting on Instagram and targeting them. Also, partnership with other companies. Can you do some co-built events where you have one sign-up form and you both get to keep and share the emails that were captured during the time? So you can kind of like steal some of the partnerships emails and get them to your own. Incentive programs are very good, like sampling, something that, giving 10% off, anything that will make people incentivized to leave their email to get something a bit later on. And making sure you have very strong pop-up or checkout widgets on your site. For example, if I'm going on my website, straight away, can a pop-up come up that says leave your email, so people are enticed to leave their email. And usually having a very strong call to action, like leave your email to get 15% off code, will often result in people doing that. So now I think we're good on time. We will do the Q&A. So I've asked people on Instagram, as always, 10 questions. I've chosen 10 questions. So we'll go through these first, and then please, in the Q&A section, leave any questions that you have, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So the first question is, which email address should we send marketing mails by? So I would definitely recommend not using your personal email if you are a business. And also if you are like an influencer, it's always better to use a generic email address. Something like, I use info@fableandmain.com. You might want to use something like Enquiries. No, not Enquiries. I think info@ is a very good one. It depends on what the email topic is about, but definitely don't use your personal one. Keep it very generic. The best place to host email marketing, again, I will probably say from me, MailChimp is my favorite. It's very cost effective. It's super easy to use. You can do many other things more than just emails. So definitely, if you're as a beginner or as a small business, MailChimp is definitely a very strong solution, but definitely do A/B tests and try other ones that even I haven't tried, and maybe set up a few and then see which one you are most suited for. Can we start email marketing without a website, asking clients to buy direct? I remember this person asked, like, for example, from Instagram or WhatsApp. You can definitely start email marketing. In the day, it's a channel in its own self. It doesn't need to be necessarily connected to a website, or, you can send emails to get people to go to your YouTube channel or to go to your Instagram feed. So there isn't necessarily a need for it. I would just say, you should always just have if you're sending emails out to someone and you have a purpose of buying, always good to have a site, not necessarily to drive people to there, because of course, maybe if you're a retailer and you don't have the rights to sell on your e-commerce site, but you're just basically facilitating in-store sales or kind of word of mouth, kind of like WhatsApp sales, then you can obviously kind of link people to maybe your WhatsApp number or your Instagram handle. But it always is good practice to have an email address in all your emails at the end as well. What are some tips for crafting engaging emails that will convert? So definitely, I think using that kind of thing, as I said, of Photoshop, creating graphic on-brand images and content, doing the segmenting, as I said. Definitely having very clear call to actions, make it very readable. So from the viewer's eye, there's not too much going on at the beginning. I always recommend starting off with a strong header and then an image, and then have your text. You don't want to bombard with text straight away. Also, if you have an incentive or something quite enticing, put that near the beginning, because people want to, you want people to like want to scroll through or want to click through at the top, because majority of people click on it and they don't end up scrolling to the bottom. I also would recommend, if possible, try to change up your emails each week, because a lot of the time people have engaging emails one week and the next week they do the same thing and that becomes less engaging. So try to always be innovative in your email templates and design, so then people won't unsubscribe later on. How can you increase your revenue through email marketing? So this definitely goes in terms of having strong buttons and call to actions. And, for example, are you saying shop now or, buy now? And the other thing I would definitely recommend is having those strong incentive codes or discounts or coupons. Emails, often people go on emails because they often do get those incentives, like 15% off or summer offer or May offer. So making sure you do have an always on offer program or incentive program is very, very important. Some email marketing campaigns that do really well end up using their loyalty program in there. Like Sephora at the bottom has that, like, your widget of like how many points you have, and that often helps to link the loyalty program in your email marketing as well. How can you get more customers and clients to open email? So I think we went through that, but basically it's all about your subject line, making sure you have something very incentivizing to make them want to click through, and making sure you definitely don't, disregard that subheader text is very important. And I think really being personalized is very good, like having that kind of Akash, how are you? Like conversational approach is quite effective, and using keywords that are very, very sort of on trend. Like, if someone's talking about summer and we're talking about the SPF sunscreen or something, or, cool down, people are more likely to click. You don't want to be irrelevant and say something about Christmas in summer, for example. So be as on trend as possible as well with your wording is crucial. Definitely would say those are my biggest tips to get better open rates. And when it comes to personalization, and many people might be wondering, how do you do that? It's quite simple. You'll know it when you go through your email tools, but something like, it depends on your marketing tool, but often when you import your subscriber list, and when they come automatically, there's usually a first name, last name, and an email address. So you want to make sure, if you're doing a sign up form or you have some form of getting an email on your website, try to have a first name, last name, and email address. Often we just see like get in touch with us and you just have an email box. Try to have the first name, last name, because what happens is that data gets pulled in, and then when you put something like it's like a straight /FNAME, which is like a first name in a coding language, you put that in your subject line, and automatically when it sends it to 1,000 people, it pulls in the first name and will put that on display to the end person when they're receiving it. So that's why you can send one button to 1,000 people and they'll all get instantly, Ben, your gift awaits. Akash, your gift awaits. Of course, if you don't have a first name for someone, it will then probably pull in like the email, which isn't ideal. So you want to make sure you have a consistent approach and making sure you have all the first names if you're ending up doing this. Oh, sorry. Do you have examples of emails going wrong? I haven't had many. I've had examples where we've done emails where there's been a spelling mistake or two, which at the end of the day, most people don't even notice because they're skim reading it anyway. But they're not really necessarily big examples of emails gone wrong that I know in my circle. But in a way, you can imagine the ones that go wrong are ones that end up having a bad messaging, or end up being pretty much the ones that are just like dead, like you click through the link and it has a dead link. It doesn't have anything that works. It was sent and maybe half written. It happens a lot. And then you often see people going erratum or something and say, sorry, ignore the last email, here is a new email. A lot of big companies do that because often it's just like one person like myself managing the emails. It's not necessarily a big team. So it's very often for big companies to make mistakes with emails. Someone goes, should we use pre-made templates or create our own template for emails? Again, it all depends on what your business is. Like if you're someone that's like just having a blog, then yeah, of course, pre-made templates are perfect, but you don't want to spend too much time or rather you spend more time doing tactics to gain more subscribers than perhaps doing your content. But I would definitely recommend having your own template. And once you have one solid template, it's very easy to then go in and change it and just keep on editing that template. So templates are always better if you can do that. How often should I send an email out? Again, this depends on your strategy. If you are, for example, something like business to fashion, you want to send an email every day because people want that daily news. If you are something that's like a sales or e-commerce platform, maybe once a week is enough. You don't want to spam and have too much information. Having said that, some people with a cult audience like Sephora sends emails daily and people love that. So it really depends on your audience, and I would definitely recommend doing some A/B testing. How I've noticed it with Fable and Main, for example, is once we send one email and we send the second email, maybe a bit too soon, I suddenly started to see some unsubscribing. So I was like, okay, let me give a bit more time to my third email. And I've spent a bit more time, and then we saw less people unsubscribing. So now we do it once a week. And I think that's something that I would recommend people doing. Once a week is optimum. You don't want to do too little though, too. You don't want to do like once every month, because otherwise people will then end up not engaging when they do come in. You want them to be as regular and consistent as possible. And the last question is, how do I make an email personalized to the recipient? So, sorry, I actually answered that question. So that goes back to my point. But yeah, please do, when you found your marketing email tool, make sure you Google like how to add a personalized field or name. And then usually there'll be a very strong FAQ section that will tell you how to do that. So it does vary per marketing tool, but for MailChimp, it's they have a very good support, like help section that tells you like a cheat list of how to do everything. So yeah, definitely do that. So now we will go to some questions, and then we can see. So someone goes, isn't email marketing a dying field because almost no one today opens up a promotion tab in Gmail unless it's to delete once in a while? So should brands still pay attention to this type of marketing or refocus efforts to affiliate or influencer marketing? So I can tell you, obviously it depends on when your audience came in, your subscribers. So if you've just recently got subscribers and people are signing up to your newsletter, they're signing up because they want to see something. So I see for Fable and Main emails every day, people signing up when they visited the site. So in a way, it's even more damaging not to engage in email marketing. So you want to see how your database is growing day on day, week on week. And if you're seeing it's growing quite a lot, you then probably need to start engaging in email marketing. I would definitely say it's not a dying field, because I've seen myself in the businesses I've worked in and also in Fable that the sales we're getting from email, especially when it looks at the Google Analytics, is very strong. Often when I do a social media post or even an affiliate marketing initiative, I see one or two sales from an influencer, or I see rarely any, to be honest. When I send an email out, I usually will get at least 10 sales guaranteed from each email I send out. So it is something that shows from a conversion point of view, email marketing is way more effective than influencer marketing currently. I haven't done an influencer like campaign where they've done a swipe up and I've seen like more than 10 sales instantly. I've never seen that recently, just because I think that's becoming quite saturated. So definitely email marketing is not dead and something to definitely focus on. Mohit goes, any free tools or websites for email marketing? Most of these tools are free and there's no barrier to entry. I think as you start getting over 500 emails, then they start charging. So definitely I would say MailChimp is the perfect free tool to start with. And then later, as you start growing it, it starts becoming, you start paying. But I think it's free up to 500 emails. So most of them are free until a certain number. Someone goes, can you please explain a bit more about lead generation ads? Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to think about if I can, maybe we'll talk about it next week as well, because we have a bit of a section on, well, actually, no, we're talking about paid search, but basically I wish I had a screenshot, but the lead generation ads that I often work with quite recently have been on Facebook and Instagram. And what it is it's a not necessarily a new type of ad asset, but it's something that's been quite not necessarily used by many companies. And what it means is you basically will create a little sign up form within the ad. So people don't leave Facebook, they end up staying on Facebook and they see some compelling ad, like a good image and a good offer. And it says something like, sign up sign up to win 2 tickets to Wimbledon's final. Don't miss this. And then they click, a button that will say sign up, and then they'll have their first name, last name, email, maybe the phone number. You can really customize it to as many things you need from them. And then they press a button. And then once they've opted in and they've agreed to the terms and conditions, both your terms and conditions and Facebook's terms and condition, which is very easy to it's very easy when you do the ad. You then will have like a display message that you can customize. So you can say at this point, thank you so much for entering. We'll notify you by email if you're successful in winning this 2 tickets. And then you can have a view on website, and then you can get people to go on your website and discover more. So it's very malleable. You can even do it in a very interesting way. You can even do it to display, we will show you a coupon code once you've left the email, and then at the end you can display the coupon code. So there's so many ways you can be tactile with lead generation ads. Think of it as a way to get an email before they visited a site, as opposed to just go learn more, shop now. And the best way to learn about this is to literally go on Facebook Business Manager, create an account, and start experimenting with lead generation ads. You'll see it when you go create ad. It's quite visible there. Malika goes, what are the other guidelines and rules one has to abide by while practicing email marketing? So definitely the biggest rules are that kind of text, but I would say guidelines, not rules. These are like kind of hidden rules. Text to image ratio. Usually when you don't have enough text, it kind of comes across as a spam. So that's very important. And there are some industry examples out there on the internet of like what should be the optimum ratio. So you can definitely Google that and check that out. The other thing would be about making sure you have, you avoid using spammy words, things like, you don't want to necessarily put like buy or things that are, I would Google spamming words in email, and you'll probably get a list, and then you can maybe use those as your kind of like your avoid words. But yeah, avoid kind of words that are often put into spam. Also, maybe I would definitely say one thing to do to ensure you're sticking to the guidelines is look at before in my presentation the ways to improve the open rate and click-through rates, because usually all of those things are the best ways. It's sort of like they're hidden rules in these guidelines. There's nothing really out there. It's like SEO, the same thing as my lecture I did there. It's really about A/B testing and understanding your audience, because at the end of the day, your audience might want those emails that say buy now, buy now, buy now. They might just be like junkies to buy, and I'm only following you to get the best offers in the industry. So that's why I would say it really depends on your audience, and making sure you make your own guidelines based on your own A/B testing. And the best way to do that is to monitor your results. So once you send an email, the same day, the same week, so one day after and 1 week after, analyze the results and see which ones worked as effectively, and try different things each week. Even if it worked well last week, try something else next week, and then A/B test. Sanjana goes, how effective has email marketing been for you? Would you recommend social media marketing or email marketing? For me, both they're not necessarily competitors. They're both hand in hand. Email marketing has been, I think, more effective in terms of return of investment and in terms of sales than social media. But when it comes to brand awareness and brand image, then social media is unbeatable. So it's sort of like, maybe for me, I would say when it comes to conversions, email marketing is better. When it comes to image, social media marketing for sure. Mohit goes, can you explain how should we make ads, banners in any format? So with this, I think when it comes to formatting your banners, again, I don't know if this is to do with emails or not, but basically, it's very important to use Photoshop. And I want to do I'm definitely going to do a course on that, maybe as a YouTube video or an online course on that, because I think Photoshop will really help everything when it comes to formatting and also creating this content. But we'll go to that maybe when we do the Photoshop course, because I think that'll be better asked when we do that thing. Another question someone asked me before is about, when it comes to your email marketing, a lot of people don't know if they should outsource it or if they should pay, should they pay a developer or someone a big amount of money? Because there are a lot of companies that do email marketing for you. I was at one of my companies I worked at before. I remember there was something, I heard something like it costed like couple of $1,000s to send one email. Now, obviously, it's mainly obviously based on the fact that they have a huge audience or a subscriber list, but that's just a number, man. That's like a monthly fee. So that normally doesn't affect it. It's usually to do with the agencies that charge a fortune to create the template. And actually, as I showed you before, it's super simple. It's just like building a building block. You know, you just have to get a template on Photoshop, and then you have to put it in the sender, like MailChimp, etc., and send it out to your audience. So I would recommend, if you want to do it effectively and on a budget, try to hire a designer as a one-off to create a template for you on Photoshop, Illustrator, even PowerPoint. I'm not recommended, but make a template by a designer. And then once you've done a one-off fee, then always make your own emails each week, because you don't want to each week pay someone to create your email for you. To be honest, I recommend email marketing being probably, for me, the biggest ROI, because I pay nothing. I just literally pay for my monthly fee on MailChimp, which isn't a lot, and I just create them myself on Photoshop. So again, going back to the whole thing about getting good at yourself on Photoshop is so important in so many different ways beyond just content. It can help emails as well. So definitely something I would recommend. And then I don't know if anyone else has any other questions. Someone goes, can we make a template on Canva? You can indeed. Canva is, I think, one of the best ways to maybe create a template for you. There are other tools as well online, so you don't have to necessarily go to designer. You can go, I would type in, maybe to begin with, you want to type in free email templates, but then later on, maybe having one of those softwares like Canva where you can have both free and paid, because if you want the best quality, you might need to pay a bit. But it's also very important, which we haven't really talked about, which I know someone's asked as well. It's about mobile and desktop. So you want to make sure before you write an email, you send a test always. You can always, in all these tools, send test emails. And you want to view it both on different browsers, Safari, Google Chrome, in maybe your in-house apps on your desktop, like your mail app. I have an app called Spark, which I love, which kind of puts all my email addresses in one place. And then you want to check on your phone, because you usually will have one template and it just will correct itself in depending on the size of the browser. So often I create emails to be mobile friendly the most, because that's when most people see emails, but you'll see when you end up using desktops, it ends up anyway only covering a part of the screen. But yeah, do test in making sure that you're mobile first, but you are also desktop friendly. And you have to think about the other browsers, because emails can come up differently depending on the browser you're on. And that's something to definitely think about. So I think we can talk more and more, but most of the questions are similar, and actually it's quite a short and concise kind of webinar today on email marketing, because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and hopefully you've learned some tips and tricks, know some tools, and it's really the best advice I can give you on email marketing is just testing, trialing, even if you're sending it just to yourself. So you just basically have one email subscriber and it's you. Test it from a content point of view, and then later, on your small segment of 10 people, 100 people, start testing different formats to start seeing the results. And then I think you'll find a lot of successful results with email marketing later on. So next week, we're going to be talking about paid search and PPC, which is really important, really focusing on Google. So I really would love for you all to join that. And that's on the 24th of July, so next Friday, same place, same time. Until then, if you want to recap this will go live on YouTube later today. So do check it out, and I will see you guys next Friday. Have an amazing weekend, an amazing week ahead, and can't wait till then. Thanks, guys.